Well, I'm overjoyed to be sharing this conversation with Tommy Rosen. Tommy's the founder of Recovery 2.0. He is a pioneer in the recovery space. He has been doing the online conferences, the Recovery 2.0 conferences for years now, and he's on number 10 as this was recorded. He's also the author of Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life. And he has the online community, the membership community, r20.com. We're going to get into all of that during our conversation. We're going to hear a lot of really great wisdom from Tommy. So let's buckle up and go for a ride with Tommy Rosen.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
All I want to say is I have been beyond excited to be sitting down with Tommy Rosen. This has been something that's sort of been on my bucket list since I first got sober, and I have used Tommy's work in my life. I was telling him before we started recording as almost a Bible in my life. His work has really helped me to uncover more pathways to recovery, not just getting sober. And so that's why I wanted to have Tommy on today to share his wisdom with all of you. So welcome, Tommy Rosen.
My goodness, Sarah, thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled. So I want to get started with you. As you know, the way that these interviews work is we really want to dive into the resource that can truly help people. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about how did Recovery 2.0 begin, and then we can dive into the things that you're working on now.
Yes, wonderful. Well, we just passed our 5-year mark. We started March of 2013 with our first conference, our first online conference ever. And for those who are not familiar, an online conference is just a place that you can come over a period of time where you can watch presentations and interviews, essentially. And the idea was, at that time, I recognized that I had been through many, many different forms of addiction in my own life, from drug addiction, alcoholism, sex and relationships, codependency, cigarettes, and gambling. Unfortunately, I'm sort of that guy, and I would say fortunately, I'm that guy now, who got to learn through the School of Hard Knocks how to recover from all these different things. Now I get to pass that on, and that's a great an unbelievable blessing in my life. So by 2013, in retrospect, I had found a way through, and it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't something you would just find. There was nowhere on the internet to share these, where you could find these kinds of ideas at that time. It's just 5 years ago. There was not anything like the understanding that we have now about how addiction works, how one can really overcome it, what happens once you put down primary addictions and these other secondary addictions come up. Like these were big issues, and they still are big issues, and they're still so misunderstood. And our work at Recovery 2.0 has been to share what we consider to be the right information, backed by a huge amount of inspiration from teachers and speakers who could really guide a person and help a person to move out of that darkness of addiction into recovery, and most importantly, to begin to thrive in your life. Because we have found if you are missing that piece and you're just sober and sort of existing in life, it doesn't bring great outcomes.
Absolutely.
Thriving.
I was just going to say that I think that for so many people watching, especially those people who are just touching on the possibility of maybe getting sober if they are struggling in an area in their life. Just even listening to your words and feeling that there might be more than just putting down this addiction, because it is so much more. And you're so right that there really wasn't anything up until recently, up until really your work began, I believe, that really showed us that there was more than just this one approach to quitting any of our addictions. So I just think that your work is just so powerful in that way, that it really exposed a lot of us who really kind of thought that, I guess, if we've given up the drug of our choice, that therefore we are sober, and that therefore this is what life looks like now. It's just kind of life with this amputation. And that's just how we have to continue along. But what you've done is you've opened it up to allow for such an incredible life to emerge, that I know that you speak about this a lot, to not want to ever escape that life, that it's not sacrifice anymore, that we don't have to look at it and lament those years and that time. Instead, we look at where we are now as such a beauty and a blessing. Like you said, the gift of addiction, really. It's not the curse that we might have thought it was.
Yes, I love how you put that. And I would say that instead of looking at letting go of, drugs or alcohol or another addictive behavior, which you referred to as an amputation, it's much more about an integration and a sprouting of wings, which really, when I was in active addiction, I was so grounded. Like, think of your parents grounding you. You can't go outside. I was grounded behind my addiction. Like, I don't get to live. I'm not going to get to really live. I'm not going to get to be me. I'm not going to get to be creative. I'm not going to get to be spontaneous. And the potential joy that a human being can experience by going through life without knowing what's coming next, I was cut off from all that. That was not going to be possible. So the important thing for people to take away about Recovery 2.0 and the conferences that we do, we've now done two a year since that first one in March of 2013. So in June 6th through the 10th, we're coming up on number 10. Our 10th conference is very exciting. And since that day, that beginning day, more than 1 million people have now watched these videos.
Wow.
And tens of thousands of people over that time have communicated with us about the way that their lives have positively changed and been impacted, and the transformation, and their families have come back together, and their body has healed, and their mind has calmed. And it's very, very, very amazing. So that's exciting, right? That's exciting. And here's the challenging part. I still watch people every day living in addiction, suffering because they don't understand or know what the way out is. Watch people in recovery suffering because they don't know how to thrive in their life.
Yeah.
And then I watch a lot of people stuck in very, very painful other mental disorders, such as depression, and not making it, and dying. Yeah. And I'm seeing that. I just got word today of yet another. My friend's brother ended up killing himself a couple days ago, behind addiction and depression. It's a very real thing. And the thing that's so painful about that is not just the loss of human life, but that there's a way through this. There is a way through this. And if you don't get it right, it's really no joke. It's life-threatening. But if you get it right, the opportunity is so epic, and so the healing can be so complete.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of how we think that our lives, so I'm in recovery from addiction to alcohol. And for me, it was to imagine my life without alcohol was devastating for so long that I would not look at that. You talk about that a lot in your book and in your work, that we don't want to look at those things. And yet, if only we could convey to people who don't yet see it, that it doesn't have to be hard. This idea of giving up and changing our entire lives, it can feel so incredibly scary, and yet it doesn't have to be. It can be so much more wonderful than you even ever might imagine. You think that you can't give it up because what will you do without it? But you don't realize what misery and hell you are in while in active addiction until you finally can come out the other side and realize that was not the easier way to live. Numbing our emotions, soothing ourselves using things outside of ourselves is not the easy way. The easier way is truly finding like what you have found in recovery and what so many of your followers have found, which is a holistic approach. So it's amazing, your work. I'm just so blown away by all you have done. I'm going to congratulate you on 10 conferences. That is an amazing success. And I know you also have an incredible success with your new membership community. So I want you to share a little bit about that as well, the Recovery 2.0 membership community.
Thank you. I do, of course, want to talk about that. I just want to comment on that thought you shared, which is a newcomer thought, and sometimes not a newcomer thought. And the thought is, when is this going to happen for me? Mm-hmm. When is this going to happen for me? Okay, so someone's, I'm speaking to somebody right now, and somebody's listening to this, you and me speaking together. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking to themselves, well, I believe you, Tommy. I believe you're having a good life. I even believe that you had a really shitty life and you had a tough run behind addiction. I believe you. When's it going to happen for me? And this person might even be saying, well, I'm doing the work. I've got my therapy. I'm doing, I've decided to, I'm doing some meetings and stuff, and I'm connecting there. I'm working with a sponsor. I'm doing the work. When's this going to happen for me? Mm-hmm. And all I can say to that person is, you sound like me. Yeah. You sound exactly like me. Like every other word out of my mouth the first sort of year or so was when. Mm-hmm. And then another word was why. Why do I have to do these things? Mm-hmm. No one else seems to have to do these things. Yes. This is not intuitively making sense to me. Yeah. Why? When will this okay, you talk about this transformation. When will it happen? Mm-hmm. And they kept saying to me, and by they, I mean people who had this transformation. They kept saying to me, it will happen. Hang in there. It will happen for you. Keep your mind open. Keep going. Keep one step in front of the other. Just do the next right thing. And it will happen for you. And lo and behold, these people were right. Yeah. They were correct. But it was critically important that I be around them. Because when the negativity came into my head, it was like, well, I don't believe in this moment. I don't believe what they're saying is true. I don't think it's going to happen for me. Gosh, I've been at this thing for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. When is this thing going to happen for me? Mm-hmm. And what you don't realize is it's actually happening.
Well, that's it. Like, I think we have such a messed up perception of time as people, if we refer to ourselves as addicts, alcoholics, or people in recovery, however we want to label ourselves. I think you talk about that a lot, is that we have this distorted perception of time. It's not going fast enough, or we're always trying to we're never in the now. We're never right here in the present moment. So I think that kind of lends itself to that type of thinking. When is it going to happen? Mm. And that's addictive thinking.
Yes, well, thank you. We can come back to the very important topic of time and how we see it in a minute. But great. So the membership community. So imagine there was a place initially online, and this online place, since we're all online and we all have a digital experience in our life at this point. Imagine there was a storehouse of recovery and health and wellness and healing type knowledge. And the knowledge wasn't particular to any one path. So you might be in terms of recovery, you might be a 12-step person, or you might be a smart recovery person, or you might be a refuge recovery person, or you might be a person who's more into the therapy side, or you might be a person who's into the yoga and the meditation, and that's been the thing that worked for you. Imagine that it didn't matter. But that any path to recovery that was actually working was represented there. You could find information there. You could learn how to meditate there. You could learn how to be not just a sober person, but a very, very contented, happy, fulfilled human being. Yeah. In every area of your life, from money to relationships to family to health and wellness in your body and mind. So that's what we decided to put together. And what I tell people is everything in recovery is expensive, except Recovery 2.0.
Yeah.
So we offer our membership. If people join through our one of our conferences, like the one in June 6th, you'll get an invite to join our community for a year for $97. That's about 25 cents a day.
It's amazing.
And you get not just the entire library, but every Monday night of the year, that's 52 Mondays a year, either myself or another teacher is presenting live. So we present a live presentation on Monday evening Pacific time. We record those, and then those become a part of the archive, and anybody can watch them anytime who's a member of our community.
Mm-hmm.
So what we know about recovery is it's swapping one set of healthier, upgraded routines for self-harming routines.
Yes.
So we are regularly giving people engagements that they can get involved in, which have a positive outcome in their life. Those Monday night sessions, for example, people now have been with us. We launched the membership, almost a year ago, and we have thousands of members, and it's growing every day. And what people are realizing is like nobody knew that you could watch and interact with me or another presenter and the community that are in these talks together. You could interact with us every Monday night. Or if you're in a different time zone and you wanted to see it on Tuesday or Wednesday, you could do that. And through watching this recovery-based media, these teachings, this interaction, that could become a powerful part of your recovery process.
Mm.
Nobody knew. I mean, this is all new stuff that we're doing. Well, it turns out.
Sorry, and I don't mean to try to keep cutting you up, but I wanted to jump in just to say, so I got sober 16 years ago, but I've talked about this on my blog and in other places that I really didn't embrace recovery until just a few years ago when I finally started my blog and I started writing and I started really sharing the truth. Prior to that, I was really mired in shame and I still had a lot of anger and resentment. And even just last Monday night, your talk on Monday night was about forgiveness and sort of letting go of resentment. And it's amazing how even as far along as I believe I've come and I help other people to get to where they want to go as well, there are always pieces that you can take away. And I absolutely loved the message. I won't give too much of it away, but it was just really powerful in that message to really just let things go. And also the other piece of it, which was amazing, because I know a lot of us struggle with this, is you really talked about not giving unsolicited advice. So when people, a lot of times will want to share what we know because we're so excited about it and we want other people to experience what we've experienced, and we can see that they're struggling and we see how they can get out of that struggle. And yet there is a time and a place for advice, and there a lot of the times it's falling on deaf ears. And so we have to really be mindful of when we are sharing from our hearts and when we are with somebody who is willing to receive and when we're not. And so I found that really important, an important lesson for me to remind myself of as well. It was great.
Awesome. I think the way that I put it was, my family is not exactly running to me for the next piece of advice.
Exactly. I know. And yet I think that so many of us who have come to this other place, and even other people who just often are people who like to give people advice, it's something that we just think, oh yeah, they're just going to be really waiting for this from us. And no, it's not the way it usually goes.
Nope. Well, So the membership is turning out to be very powerful for people, and that's exciting to us. We have this grand vision of someday having 1 million members, and what that would mean is it's just a tremendous amount of resources would be necessary to handle that, and we'd have a tremendous amount of resources to be able to invest into the solution to this problem. And the reason ultimately that that's important is because addiction has really presented itself in the forefront of public health concerns in the world today. And it's unfortunately it's growing. It's not getting smaller. We're not beating it back. It's gaining on people, and people are more and more susceptible to the ravages of addiction in their lives. And as it is with addiction, people don't notice. They don't notice it. Like, you don't really know what you don't know. And the very famous quote is, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too strong to be broken.
Yes.
And that has really been a good descriptor of the experience from the inside, from an addict standpoint, of how addiction works upon us. You know, I didn't know how addicted I was in many situations in my life until I actually tried in earnest myself to try to stop something, and was like, wow, I'm really not able to stop.
Yeah.
Like, and I like, I'll try again, and like really getting my butt kicked. And at the end of, you know, the next run, and just waking up in a stupor and recognizing I really tried not to have this happen again. And yet here I am. This is starting to be frightening now. Like, I'm starting to wake up to the fact that, like, wow, I'm not going to admit it to anybody, but I don't think I'm in control anymore.
Well, because even in your own story, so you had combated drug addiction. Your drug of choice was marijuana and cocaine. And yet it was amazing to me, you know, uncovering more of your story, that you even managed to get married to this love of your life while battling a gambling addiction. So that was something that it's kind of like what we talk about, the whack-a-mole, where you hit one down and then something else pops up. For me, it was sugar. So I went from sugar to alcohol and then back to sugar when I quit. And so I found that really fascinating in your experience as well. And just to know that until we really get underneath those deeply rooted issues, something else is just going to keep popping up. And that's why when you were saying that this issue is getting to be, it's such an epidemic, and it's because things like social media that didn't even exist. I mean, Facebook didn't exist when I got sober. Blogs did not exist. I felt very much isolated and alone in this. And that's why things like Recovery 2.0 and this membership and the conferences, it's just allowing for people to really get connected and to get plugged in to what is going on as far as the resolution to, you know, the solution to addiction. You know, there is this other side, and now we're more able to access it. But, you know, for so many, for so long, it was just, you know, it's inaccessible. And for so many people, like you were saying, we don't even know what we don't know. We don't know what we're addicted to until we try to stop. I really thought, even as a cigarette smoker, I just enjoyed the taste of cigarettes. Like, I wouldn't admit that I was addicted to them. And even caffeine, I wouldn't have admitted that I was addicted to caffeine until I gave it up for 3 days cold turkey, and I died of headaches for 3 days. And so I think it's just fascinating when you start to dig into what's going on underneath, you start to uncover all of the addictive patterns in our lives. And I think that's what's so amazing about your work and the work of people in this space, is that we're really, I just wish that every single person on the planet would really understand that we're all going through these kinds of things, and that there is a way to recover from them, to live this whole, you know, happy, fulfilled life that I think we're all seeking in these outside substances and devices and whatever we're using to soothe.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You know, I'm just thinking, there's so many people who, well, wherever you're at in your journey, whatever stage of addiction you might be in, or whatever stage of recovery you might be in, you're still a beginner to that next step.
Yeah. And
we're all a beginner to our next step. And so I'm working on a variety of things in my life that it occurs to me, these are important things to be working on. You know, I can be better in this area. Oh, here's a mistake I made. Let's clean that up, and let's work on that kind of stuff. Whatever life is showing us at any given moment, the promise of recovery is simply to be able to look and to be able to move through and not be stuck in. The addiction piece of this is, it's like almost like a commitment on the part of the individual to stop their process of evolution, to stop their process of growth, and say, no, my choice would be to remain here in the known. What I know is that if I smoke that joint, or if I, snort a line, or if I do that drink, or if I shoot some dope, or I take an oxy, or I take my Adderall, my Addy, or whatever the thing is, I know what the outcome is going to be of that because I've done it before and I would like to recreate that feeling. Well, at some point, the recreation of that feeling takes away and you start to realize, like, you know, I don't really have much of a life. Like, my life is just a decision to take a drug that's going to deliver me to a certain place. And I never get to experience anything spontaneous anymore. I never get to experience my own creativity because I'm just sort of like in this place, like I can tell you what's going to happen. There's no evolution, there's no stepping into the unknown. So we remain in this sort of flatline comfort zone called addiction. And it takes a toll on our mind, our body, and our spirit.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautifully put. So I would love to, I know that the 12 steps have played a tremendous role in your recovery, and there's a lot of misconception out there, a lot of people that are trash talking the 12 steps, people that are saying that, you know, it's a cult. There are people that are really dead set against them, other people who are absolutely, you know, for the 12 steps and attribute them to saving their lives. And so I want to hear from you, your story, going back as far as you want to, and then leading us up through when you went to Hazelden to your first treatment, and then beyond, so that then we can come full circle and bring us all the way back to Recovery 2.0.
Sure. Well, earlier when I was speaking to you, I said, you know, everything in recovery is expensive except Recovery 2.0.
Yeah.
Well, here's another thing. The 12 steps, you know, they're not only not expensive, they're free.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge with the 12 steps and 12-step programs is marketing. They have a marketing problem, a major league marketing problem. They should hire a marketing firm to help them out. I'm not even kidding. I'm like serious. Like,
yeah. I totally agree with you, because I'm somebody that I tested the waters with some different fellowships, and I understand the difference between the steps and the fellowships. And for me, it was a struggle to find a community that I felt at home in. So I think you're absolutely right. There needs to be some serious marketing around what the 12 steps, the tenets of the 12 steps.
Yes.
So maybe you can help us here.
Sure. Well, you know, the 12 steps, just those words, and the book around them, originally the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Later on, other fellowships formed, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, adult children of alcoholics. All these different programs formed, and many of them have their own text. And all those texts are legitimate texts based around those 12 steps. So when someone says, you know, I'm not into AA, usually what they mean is the things that people believe, or the way that people behave, or the experience that I had with people there was unpleasant. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the people. I didn't like their approach to things.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's legitimate. You had a negative experience there, and that makes sense, you know. I've had negative experiences with many people in 12-step programs. But as you said earlier, that's not the 12 steps. That's human beings gathered around the 12 steps. Mm-hmm. And people gather around the 12 steps like people gather around the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib for Sikhs, and every other major spiritual path and doctrine. People gather around those doctrines in infinite ways. So there are infinite ways to look at the 12 steps, just like there are infinite ways to look at any teaching. So looking at the 12 steps themselves, the things that would be difficult for people in secular Western thought would be spiritual and quasi-religious concepts. So if you are coming with religious prejudice and you look at the 12 steps and it says the word God a number of times through those steps, you're going to think, not for me. Thanks, but no thanks. You know, that's with any investigation of what's actually being said, but that word God is so difficult and so laden with history and a lot of negative associations So right there, you're going to lose a lot of people. And they're like, well, I'm not into this, and I'm not into the people who are into this either. So like that's it. And that's how I came to the 12 steps.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I came there. I'm skeptical. I am so not into this language. I'm so not into people who are into this language. And you don't understand me, and I don't understand you. And you know what? That's just fine for me. Except for the fact that I don't really know how to live my life, and I'm really in trouble. And I'm struggling, and I'm being nudged into at least looking at the 12 steps to try to see if I can understand it more deeply. Well, I'm very fortunate to have had that nudging, to have had people say, listen, just consider a few things. So what I was to consider was this. Whatever your conception is of the parts of life which are not physical. So an example might be a thought. A thought is not something you can grab onto. It's not physical. An emotion, not physical. My breath, like physical but not really physical. What is it? Where's it come from? Where's it going to? Dreams. The relation and the connection between people. Love. Like these are spiritual concepts. Whatever your relationship is and how you see the universe operating around you, whatever occurs to you is legitimate. And so the 12 steps give you that kind of space. They say things like, think of a higher power, meaning something just greater than you as an individual. Well, there's many things I can think of that are greater than me as an individual. The very concept of love is a higher power. The concept of nature. The concept of two people versus just me. Or a group of people versus just me. That's a higher power. Two people working together towards solving my addiction problem is more powerful than me working alone. There's just simply a higher power there. So I was given the opportunity to begin to think of God as just anything that represents something greater than just me by myself. And so a little door opened for me to start to think about these things and to be open to concepts. And then I would read certain things like the poetry of Rumi, or I would read some yogic text, or I would read something by one of the great ancient masters. And it would ring true for me, like really true for me. Rumi would say like sort of rebellious things, and I'm a rebellious man. And I love rebelliousness. And so here is this 13th century poet saying things like, gamble everything for love, if you are a true human being. If not, leave this gathering. And I would listen to those words and I'd just be like, man, I'd like to hang out with this Rumi character. Like, wow, he's really onto something. Gamble everything for love. And then I could take that and I could apply it to my life. Gamble everything for my recovery. Give everything that I have to this. The way I used to give everything to drugs and alcohol. Where could this lead? What could I become? How could I become? First, to become free. What would that be like? And if I was a free human being, I mean really free, what could I do then? And I want the answer to that. So I started down the road of the spiritual path, which just required me to keep an open heart and open mind. The 12 steps became accessible to me, therefore. My prejudice dropped away. So when I saw the word God, it didn't any longer carry all the resentment I had and all the negative feelings I had associated with that word because of human history around that word. All of a sudden I was like, well, it's just something that's just greater than me alone. What can I tap into today? What can I connect with today? Who can I connect with today? I'm waking up with negative thoughts on my mind. What can I do to change that and shift that towards positive? And that became a practice to me. The 12 steps gave me that practice. How can I let go of my past? We spoke about time and the importance of time.
Yeah.
In addiction, all I do is live in the past. And then I freak out about the future.
Yeah.
And the thing that's missing is the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
How could I access the present moment if I'm stuck in resentment that's just weighing me down in my life from the past? All the resentment, all addiction, therefore, comes from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Got nothing to do with the present moment. God, if I could find the present moment, I'd find a place where addiction doesn't live. I'd find a place where there is no addiction.
Mm-hmm.
How could I do it? Well, the 12 steps help you to begin down that path, to release resentment. You know, I feel terrible about myself. Why? Because I've done some terrible things that are out of alignment with who I really am. But I'm so frightened that if somebody knew what I did, they couldn't possibly love me. And what I really, deep down, really, really want is I really want love. And I want to be loved, and I want to be able to give love, and I want it to be authentic. But I'm so terrified that if you really knew what I think of, what I'm capable of, the shameful things I did, the way that I lied and cheated and stole, and all my human stuff, and my frailties and my weaknesses and all these challenges, if you knew about those, you couldn't possibly love me. I'll be unlovable. So what we do is we hold on to our secrets, and we stay small, and we never, ever get free.
Yeah.
The 12 steps give you a direct path to moving beyond all of that and to stating the things that you've discovered about yourself, which you're working now to no longer have be a part of your life. You're forgiving yourself. You're allowing yourself to move forward, refusing to be tethered to these weights any longer. Nobody in the world would be against that.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, when you've done all this work and you've cleaned up your past and you're able to be present and to have a spontaneous creative moment, what can you do with it? Well, you can be of service, finally. And I don't mean in service in any particular kind of way.
Yeah.
Now you're just in service, period.
Mm-hmm.
You go to work, you're in service to the people you work next to, or your employer. You go to, you're out in the world and you're in service to the people around you. You're in service to yourself. You sit down at a meal, you say a prayer, you eat healthy food. You're in service to bringing more energy and health into your body so you can be of more service to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to move more and more towards helping people who have been afflicted in the same ways that you have. And you get to help folks. And yes, of course it feels good to help other people. And so there's no one in the world that's against that.
Mm-hmm.
See, what people are against is ideas that are expressed a certain kind of way that rub them wrong based upon their past. So anybody against the 12 steps, they'll tell you one of two things. I couldn't get the God thing. They'll cite dismal success rates. This doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or they'll cite the negative experiences or the negative people that they encountered in 12-step programs.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get down underneath these 12 steps, it's beautiful. It's an incredible doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question, are you blessed enough to, first of all, have an open mind? Second of all, to get around some people who can really explain this stuff to you
Mm-hmm.
and make it work for you within your belief system so that you're not being forced to believe something that you don't believe. Who can do that?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes an idea to be jammed down their throat.
Yeah.
Least of all me.
Yeah.
So what I was given is an opportunity to approach these steps with a lot of space and a lot of time and patience. And what it did for me was it delivered me to a place of freedom where I no longer thought about using drugs and alcohol.
And that's the gift, right? To get to that place where you no longer are looking to keep going back there.
That's the gift. And then you get to grow from there in the way you're going to grow. Now, for me, I encountered, as I mentioned, all these other addictions. And so I would apply these principles. And most importantly, I recognized I needed something more. It wasn't just the 12 steps were going to solve every problem in my life. No, I needed therapy. I needed a path that was physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual. That's yoga. Something that worked on the human being at all those levels, that's yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And why that's important is because addiction works on you at all levels. Addiction afflicts your mind, body, emotions, spirit.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to really respond well to addiction and get past it, you're going to need something like yoga. That was my finding. That was my huge finding, was to understand that yoga wasn't like a take it or leave it proposition. I have got to do it. I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully it's joyful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not hard for me.
And I think that like Nikki Meyer says, our issues are in our tissues. We have to move that energy through, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Have to move the energy. And then ultimately meditation, and then creating greater and greater awareness, greater and greater consciousness. And all that means is you're on your destiny path, meaning you're moving towards the utmost fulfilled state that you could be in this lifetime. And that's where your joy is.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. And I really want for people who may not know you, because these might be people who are coming into recovery, they've just literally Googled, how do I get sober? I want them to be connected with you through your story. So can you tell us how you came to the 12 steps? What was your story as a child? I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'd love for you to kind of give us the highlights of what brought you to the 12 steps and then beyond.
Yes. Well, the highlights for me are a childhood filled with a lot of stress, and a rhythm of reaction to that stress, which included getting high and then coming down. Mm-hmm. So I was truly on a regular get high, come down rhythm. Yeah. What that means is there was never baseline. Mm-hmm. So for me to understand myself as a child was impossible. I never got to find out, well, what would baseline Tommy be like? What if I was just okay for a minute? Even a minute.
Yes.
What if I wasn't constantly trying to get high or worried about coming down? And so
and you're talking about, like, as a child, like just feeling okay with yourself, feeling that that all is well, not seeking sugar, video game, whatever's going to bring you up and then bring you down. That's what you're talking about as a young kid, right?
Yes, exactly. So sugar is obviously that's the gateway drug, number one. Yeah. That's where it begins for everybody. Yeah. And we're only just now learning just how much of a problem sugar is.
So my world is in sugar, and I'm so passionate about helping people to understand this. I want to talk about it again later, but I want you to keep going here. But I do want to touch back on sugar and the importance of trying to remove it from our lives.
Yes, and we will definitely. So there's this rhythm of up and down. For me as a kid, the healthy outlet was sports. And without question, I had many, 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 many elated and happy times in my childhood. I don't want people to hear this and say, wow, it's terrible. You were always going up or you were always coming down. What it was, sports and movement and activity was, on the bright side of it, really good for my body, really good for my mind, and really enjoyable for my spirit. Like, I loved sports. So it was so much fun. Yeah. So much fun. But when it came time to stop, I just couldn't do it. When it came time to sit or be still, or like do things that people do, like read a book or listen to a story, or, be calm just in some kind of way, I could never do it. So all I'm trying to say is there was no off switch for me. And so I never learned what calmness was, ever. I never had that in my childhood. So that's not really okay for a human being, because we part of what we do is we do want to drop into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. And in that nervous system, that's when we really rejuvenate. That's when we calm down. That's when the cells of our body detox themselves, and that's where we really bring health and balance into life. And that was not to be my destiny. So I continued that through my childhood, and then I found marijuana. And the thing that's significant about it is marijuana like, I'll just come out and just say this for everybody, and everyone needs to really understand this. Let's not think of drugs and alcohol as good or bad. Let's consider that even for ourselves, at a point in our lives, they had relevance. Marijuana had great relevance for me at that point in my life because it truly calmed my hyperactive mind and body. So it also shifted emotions for me that I needed to shift in order just to be functional. I started to have a lot of anxiety and I started to have a lot of anger later on in my childhood, in my adolescence, and I couldn't function with it. And so marijuana really did help me with that. The only challenge there, of course, is that there's some negative prices that you have to pay. If there was nothing negative about it, there was no, hangover, and I mean that in many senses, then there would be no problem. You could just, everybody just smoke pot and you're fine. And the unfortunate thing that, at least for me, it prevented me from getting to be me. And I became dependent upon it to create a reality for me, which was the most pleasant reality that I knew how to create, even though it wasn't the most pleasant reality that I could get to. I just couldn't get
an identity, right? Like you were able to, and I can relate to that. And I think so many people watching this can relate to that, when I was a teenager, I hung out with the pot smokers, the drinkers, the smokers, just the people that had very low expectations of me. And so I could certainly meet them. And I felt like I was included there. It made me feel like I could fit in. And I think that might be kind of what you're saying there.
Well, I would say this, the people that I hung out with, I think actually for me had very high expectations of me. It's just that we were all working together in a very sort of underground version of the American dream, even as teenagers. And we were running away to the circus, and our circus was the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
And we got an opportunity to be with a community of people that were using drugs like we were, who were very, very bright people, and many of whom had come from really difficult, anxious, or challenged, or painful family situations. And we found each other, and it was a blessing. And at that point in time, there was great relevance to it. And ultimately, it wasn't to be the answer. And so this really concerns me for people in growing up right now in this world where marijuana is about to be legal. It is legal in many places, and it's going to be legal everywhere soon. There's no question, no holding this back. And anybody on the train these days of trying to prevent marijuana legalization, I seriously think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
More importantly, let's educate people about what it is and what it isn't. Does it have a relevance? If so, what's the context? And when might it have a relevance for someone? And what are the dangers? And what do we give up? See, I'm not anti-marijuana. I'm pro-consciousness.
Yeah.
I'm pro-centeredness. I'm pro-health. And there's some people in this world, like me, that at a certain point in their life, they might have needed marijuana. And unfortunately for those people like me, they might get caught up in it and think that it's going to be the thing that ultimately will solve the problem, and it isn't. And I say that, I really believe generally as human beings, if we are dependent upon an external substance, in order for us to get through life, I just think that we're going to be missing something, and I think the price is to be paid.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
It's not black or white for me. The point is that I took it as far as it could go, and it became the centerpiece of my life. I didn't want to live life without marijuana. I didn't want to do anything really without smoking pot. And when it got in the way of sports, which it did, it won out. It won out over the sports. It became a more important thing. Even though my body and athletics have always been important to me. During those times, it was like in college, for example, I knew I had to go to the gym. I knew I had to work out. I knew I wanted to do all these things. I wanted to get outside. I wanted to do more hiking. I wanted to do all this stuff. But somehow I just didn't have the motivation. Just didn't play out, and marijuana led to somewhat of a disconnection from deeper aspects of me that were required for me to live a full life.
And it also led to your use of cocaine. So I know that was the next part of the journey.
And I want to be very, and this is not to counteract anything you're saying. Be very, very careful. I don't believe marijuana led to my use of cocaine at all.
Mm.
I believe that cocaine presented itself to me, and something I said I would never do. And under the circumstances, on that night when my friend presented the prospect of cocaine and hanging out with a couple of girls that wanted to hang out with us and do coke all night, those two things came together in a very powerful combination, and I said yes.
But you don't, so you mentioned before that sugar is the gateway drug. You don't believe that and other drugs are then, do you think that you would have been able to say yes to cocaine that night had you never tried other drugs in your life?
We will never know.
Yeah, fair enough.
When I say sugar is the gateway drug, what I mean is sugar is weakening the system. And I believe that a weak system, even physically, not just emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, I believe a weak system is one of the requirements for addiction to take hold. And ultimately, you know, there are people in my life who smoke pot. They're my age. They've smoked pot their entire life. Their life is not imploding. They have families. They're doing well.
Yeah.
I can't say what it's like to be inside their skin. And it's none of my business. They're okay. That would never work for someone like me.
Yeah.
That's all. So I don't need to be right or need them to be wrong. I just need people to understand that if you want to really understand why you decided to do hard drugs, when you said you would never do that, it isn't accurate to me to say that marijuana led to that.
Mm.
What's much more accurate is to say my level of disconnection was continued by an insistence that my internal needs could be met by external substances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And those external substances became harder and harder in nature.
Yeah.
My response to smoking pot was not cocaine. My response to powerlessness was cocaine. Cocaine gave me power, the perceived power.
Mm-hmm.
That was about power. And if you could bring girls into it as well,
Yeah.
that's power also.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a person who grew up feeling a sense of powerlessness, I won't be able to control my environment. I'm not getting what I need in life. I don't feel like anybody trusts me. I don't feel like I'm being given the ball ever. I'm powerless.
Yeah.
Well, if you give me a drug that makes me feel powerful, someone like me is going to really take to it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh my gosh. Like, absolutely makes sense. That's exactly what it feels like.
So there's a psychological underpinning.
Yeah.
That created a desire to try, and then a love of the feeling produced by cocaine.
Yeah.
Even though at the end of the night I was crying and miserable.
Yeah.
And hurting and saying I'd never do it again, and then I'd repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew no other way to bring power into my life in any kind of authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
So very important that people understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana solved a different problem.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana solved my hyperactivity. It gave me a way to laugh and to deal with my anger in the short term. So there were things that these substances served me, but I wasn't learning the ways to cope without substances. So substances became my method of navigating the world. And when substances become someone's method for navigating their emotional life, in my opinion, there is something that's being missed, even if their life is working out.
Yeah, totally. And I know that you'll agree with this. It's like, I just wish that everybody could, I think you even said this or wrote this somewhere, you wish that everybody could experience addiction so that they could experience recovery.
Yes.
And I hear that in what you're saying now too, is that, I mean, I know, we all know lots of people who drink and who do drugs, recreationally, and their lives appear normal on the outside. But man, I do think that there's so much power when we can go deeply within and uncover all of the issues that we all deal with. I mean, I just believe that addiction is just not limited to people who abuse alcohol and drugs in the way that I did or you did. I mean, it's so pervasive in so many areas of life. We see it in social media, in sex, in gambling, in pornography, whatever. And I just wish that more people would open up their minds to know that they don't have to hit a type of rock bottom before they can feel the sense of inner calm and peace that I know that you experience and enjoy in your life. So anyway, I mean, I'm glad that your conferences have reached 1 million people. And I also think of the 1 million people, they have spoken to at least one other person about what they experienced in your conferences. So the work you are doing is exponentially helping the world, but we need 100 Tommy Rosens, 1 million Tommy Rosens.
Well, my wife might disagree with you on that. But I will say this. Everybody, all of us have to do what we're doing. And I commend you for doing the work that you're doing and the writing and the outreach and this wonderful awakening you've had is amazing, Sarah. So
thank you.
We all just have to keep doing it and getting good messages out there. And we also have to, we have to have a lot of fun. We really, really have to have fun. Yeah. And we can't forget the science of fun. Because if this is all serious and this is all, doom and gloom and, you're either sober or you're not. And if you're not, it's horrible. And if you are, it's great. Like it's too intense. And if there's anything we need in the United States in particular, it's to take it down a notch. Yeah. And, go out and take a walk in a forest somewhere, on a beach somewhere, in the mountains somewhere, through your cities. Take a walk and relax and enjoy yourself. And if you're unable to do that, then a deeper inquiry is necessary. If you're so caught up in here, or you're so caught up in here, and you can't just enjoy the day, take some free time, then you have to ask yourself, it's like, this is not what life's about. My life is not about go to work, come home, sit on the couch, eat some food, and repeat. Have a couple relationships, have sex, ease the pain, repeat. No, there's more to your life than that. Yeah. More than you might imagine. And I know what it's like to be caught in the mind and to be afflicted with mental addiction, which I would say every one of us is dealing with. So if that's you, then know that there's a way out. Know that there are practices and perspectives that you can adopt into your life today, which will make a difference in your life immediately. Yeah. And so do those things. And hopefully you'll come join us at r20.com, which is our membership, and get the book Recovery 2.0 and read it, please. And it's just been very helpful for many people. And come to our conference.
Come to your conference for sure. What I love about Recovery 2.0, the book, is that it really, I've said to you, it's dog-eared and starred in so many places. It really becomes a text, like something that I often will pick up. I'll open to a page and I'll just kind of remind myself or relearn something or be inspired by. And what I really love are sort of the tenets that you use in your work. And they are the tenets that you were saying, these things that are accessible to all of us, things like prayer, things like yoga, meditation, good food, exercise, moving our bodies, our breath, really learning to connect with the breath and all of these things. Kundalini yoga, I know, is big for you because of its relationship to the breath and to mindfulness, and just also reminding ourselves to create purpose and meaning in our lives. And like you say, we're not just meant to be born and work and pay bills and die. That's just not what the whole point of this thing is about. And so you're right, we do have to have more fun. Definitely more fun along the way, but this is fun. I love having these kinds of conversations and being enlightened by people like you. Remind me and everybody, because I am passionate about food, and so many times people will sort of give me some pushback when I'll encourage them when they are newly sober to let's really look at the food situation. Let's really work on that together. And I love to be able to help people and coach them in that area. But I do get pushback from people saying, fuck off, Sarah. I just got sober. I just gave up my favorite drug. I am not giving up the brownies or the sugar in my coffee or, whatever it is, the cookies, the cakes, and the potato chips. Can you help, can you share your wisdom in this area?
Yeah. So first of all, this is not towards you. So please don't think this is towards you. This is towards me. So the reminder is, Tommy, mind your own business. Mind your own business. And the only people that I can tell, support or make a suggestion to are the people who directly ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is off limits. So, and my teacher reminds me of this all the time. So, and also there's a timing to things. And, if someone says to me, I just got sober, give me a break. I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, I wouldn't want you to go off sugar and then have a relapse and then, not such a good thing happens in your life. And sometimes it's too much for people. Mm. What I can suggest is do exactly what you're doing. Stay sober, one day at a time, and let's learn how to do breath of fire. Just a person doing breath of fire is going to, I'm telling you right now, if you take on a breath of fire practice for even 30 days, you're going to quit smoking.
Can you explain to people who don't know what breath of fire is, what that is?
It's a rapid breath process, in and out through the nose, using the belly to pump the breath in and out. It's very simple. Right now you can't see, but my belly's going in and out. There's an evenness to my breath in and out. And what's taking place is that the mucous membranes of my lungs are being healed. My lung capacity is expanding. I'm dropping into a more parasympathetic nervous system rather than fight or flight. There's a calmness that's created. But I'm refining and working with the lungs. Mm-hmm. I'm also moving on an energetic level. I'm also moving a lot of energy. So I don't tell people, go off the brownies, quit smoking. It's like, forget about what to give up. Never mind that.
Yeah.
Stay sober one day at a time, but let's bring the practice of yoga into your life. It's so powerful. I know it's going to take care of everything you need to be. It's going to happen for you if you bring these practices into your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense, Sarah?
Oh, it's such a great philosophy. And I love that, because I'll often say to crowd out the junk by just bringing in so many good things that, you're full on good food. So you don't have room there to be bringing in the junk food. So that's part of my work too. I love that. Great.
Yes. And the final thing I'd say to people is, eat the brownie.
Yep.
If you can really enjoy it.
Yes.
If it becomes a problem for you, address it.
Yeah.
And the way you address it is just like you address letting go drugs and alcohol. You tell somebody, first of all, you know what? I can't really stop eating some things that are causing me a problem in my life. And I'd like some help there. That's it.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, enjoy the brownie and don't worry about it. But if it becomes an issue for you,
or if you're feeling guilt or shame about the brownie, let's look at the brownie.
Then it's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
The minute guilt or shame comes in there, immediately you have to know, okay, this is not okay for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay for me. Something inside me is saying change.
Yeah.
So that's all. And in the meantime, be good to yourself, love yourself, be kind to yourself. And that's the message.
That is the message. Tommy Rosen, I have 2 questions for you. What is the best thing about being clean and sober?
Oh, I would just say, the 2 best things are creativity and spontaneity. So I don't know what's going to happen next, and that's just great. And then the creative part is through my thinking and my actions and my words, I'm actually participating in how my life is unfolding. It's not happening to me. It's happening with me. It's happening for me. There's a gift in everything that's challenging. So nothing can happen anymore that doesn't have a value, that doesn't have a relevance and a meaning for you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean life is joyful every day. There's still lots of challenge and there's still lots of hardship, and we have to face things like loss and people getting hurt and stress and all the things we face. But the orientation towards the world is completely different. And you now recognize it's all on purpose. It's all for a reason. And our job is to figure it out one day at a time.
Yeah. Things happening for us, not to us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I borrow this last question from Oprah. What do you know for sure?
Yes. I know for sure that there's meaning and purpose to being here. I know a couple of other things for sure. I know for sure that love wins. I know for sure that in this body, the spirit that's in here can't learn anything more from drugs and alcohol. There's nothing more. Those days are gone now. And I'm so grateful to have had them. And I'm so grateful that I'm onto something else that for me is a huge upgrade from where I used to be. And I know for sure that we're supposed to serve each other. For sure. We need each other. And those are some of the things I know for sure.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, I know for sure that I have absolutely loved this time with you. I've learned so much from you in just this short bit of time. Thank you so much for being with me and with everyone that's here watching. Tommy Rosen, you are an inspiration. You are a pioneer and somebody I am so deeply grateful to have come across on my path of recovery. Thank you so much for today and for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit sobrietystartshere.com.